So let me repeat what I said before. Pretty much any New Testament book would be rejected by the Ebionites, and this is why. First of all, Jesus wasn't a Greek. The apostles were not Greeks, and perhaps they could speak a few words in Greek, but they were not Greeks. So it's highly suspect that the oldest manuscripts that we have of the New Testament writings are all in Greek. And people try to bring up some Hebrew or Aramaic sources. Unfortunately, they're all translations from Greek. So we do not really have any evidence that something existed before the Greek manuscripts. However, it's possible. I hope it's possible, and scientists try to reconstruct something, some older layer of Hebrew or Aramaic out of what we have. But so far, the results are not great, unfortunately. The oldest manuscripts that we have are Greek. And I personally believe that the New Testament is a 2nd century book. It doesn't mean that there wasn't something in the 1st century. The problem is we don't really know for sure what was there in the 1st century. So the Ebionites would not worship this book called the New Testament as holy and perfect. It's obviously it is not. I would say it's an idol for most of the Christians. They worship it as this document that just fell from heaven, and that's not what happened. I mean, it was only formalized in the way that we have now around 400 AD. That's over 300 years after Jesus. And it sort of existed in various forms before that. But most people don't know that. So if you would look at the canon of 200, or if you would look at the canon of Marcion, they would be totally different. And what existed before that, we don't really know. So, New Testament is an idol. Okay, people worship it as absolutely holy and perfect, and it is not. It is just a collection of carefully selected religious literature, selected by one particular religious party, the Proto-Orthodox, mostly somewhere probably in the end of the 2nd century, and modified over time even more until around 400 AD. But it was